How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So, work orders have been announced. We've had this news for a few days now, and I've taken a few days to kind of let the dust settle on the announcement of Dragonflight, and to collate some thoughts, and more importantly, to see what the community has to think about this. Now, I'm going to throw it out there. An opinion that seems to be a bit of a hot take, maybe, but I will justify it hopefully by the end of this video, that work orders are actually going to be bad for gold making, but they will be good for the overall health of the game. Let me first off by just introducing myself. We've had a little bit of an influx of new subscribers recently, so if this is one of your first videos to my channel, welcome in. I go by the name Manthieus online at the very least. I tend to focus very heavily on World of Warcraft and the economy within it. The economy in World of Warcraft is one of the strongest in any video games, and I've proven myself to be pretty knowledgeable on this area, recently surpassing over 100 million gold in liquid real money gold in the game. I consider myself to be pretty successful at what I do in the game, and I try to help other people achieve the same sorts of thing, as it's not outside the realms of possibility to do this. But let's talk about work orders then today for a little bit. I'm going to just, preface this by saying this is probably going to be one of my longer videos. I do like to keep a lot of the content on the channel sort of between the sort of 5 to 10 minute mark, keep it short and sweet. There's a good chance this will be a long one, so grab yourself a cup of coffee, sit down, buckle in for the ride, and let's talk about everything we know about work orders. Firstly, what are these work orders and where do they come from and why are they going to exist? Well, work orders are going to be a system that Blizzard are going to add in the new Dragonflight expansion that will allow people to place an order for a crafted item. As we believe to be so far, this is most often going to be for an item of gear. Now, whether they expand this further to consumables, to past expansion crafts, we don't know at this point, but the examples we've been given and the information that Blizzard have informed us about is that this is primarily going to be for the purpose of the new crafted gear. They're going to be able, when they place this order, you can see from this little screenshot here that they're going to be able to provide some, maybe even all of the materials needed to craft this item. This is a significant difference to how crafting has always worked in the, 17 years this game has been available. They're going to be able to provide some of the materials, and this will make the risk that is needed and the process of crafting those items a lot more simplistic. They also then offer what is, commonly being referred to as commission, or what is often referred to as a tip. If you've ever done face-to-face crafts for people in World of Warcraft previously, it's kind of customary that if you provide the materials to somebody, they do the craft, they've taken the time and effort out of their day to level up their professions. It's kind of customary. It's one of those unwritten rules that you provide them with a tip, a bit of a thank you for taking the time out of their day to craft that item for them. In this regard, they're calling it commissions, but it's basically the same thing. It's a flat value of gold, or at least it appears to be at this point anyway, a flat value of gold that you are willing to offer that person to fulfill this order. Now, what you've also got to consider is that if you're also not providing all of the materials, this value has got to cover the cost of the remaining materials as well. This is where the complexities of the system will come into play. Now, I got to very quickly sort of specify that the work orders, in my opinion, are a good addition to the game for the purpose of it just makes the whole thing a lot more simplistic. The auction house has become a bit of almost the Wild West, it feels, over the last expansion, especially as we've got into more complicated crafted items, more expensive crafted items, and as expensive items they be, I'm talking about base legendary items. As those items become sort of people's best in slot items, the Wild West of the auction house has really come to a point where it needed something, and work orders are that something. It needed something to smooth it out a little bit, make it a little bit fairer across the board. So let's go into a little bit more detail about why these work orders were actually needed in the first place. In 9.2 and in Shadowlands as a whole, we've seen that Blizzard have tried to take this approach of making crafted items a little bit more varied. No longer do they want us to just craft one item and it make the exact same item every single time. The optional reagent system that they added at the beginning of Shadowlands allows you to take a base item and then to add optional reagents to it to create different variations of said item. For the most part, we've known this to adjust the item level, but we also had the addition of missives. Missives gave us the ability to specify the secondary stats, and I can only feel that they're going to build on this even further going forward. Crafted items have also become more expensive to craft. And the downside of this has become that when something becomes more expensive to craft, the crafter themselves is taking on more of a risk to make that item up front. And ultimately meaning that when they try and sell that item, they want to make sure that they're making a significant amount of profit on top of it to justify that risk that they've taken. This has also meant that as there becomes more and more variations of different items, the overall price of a lot of crafts actually creeps up. Whereas you'd kind of expect it to creep down over time due to competition, but that's not always the case. Now, I'm going to, reference back to the base legendaries probably a few times in this video, because the base legendary items are kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. The base legendary items, admittedly, were a swing and a miss as far as Blizzard are concerned, and a bit of a swing and a miss as far as most of the player base is concerned. Super duper mega expensive to level up to even get to the point where you can craft them, and then when you can craft them, your prerogative is to sell them for as high a price as you possibly can, because you've got a huge initial investment to cover, and it's not until you've recuperated that cost to where you personally can start bringing the price of the items down. But throughout that entire process, it's super unfriendly to anybody that wants to buy one of those items, often meaning that people get super frustrated that the base legendary items were perceivably 2, if not 3 times the actual crafting cost. If somebody was to go to the auction house, buy the materials, and then spend a bit of time trying to find somebody to craft that item for them on a one-to-one trade, at least early on in the patches, it becomes a lot more lucrative to do it that way than it does to just buy the item off the auction house. If you were to just buy it off the auction house, you are very aware that you're paying a premium. This is also a bit of a downside on the lower population realms. The work order system should hopefully alleviate a lot of the problems that we see on smaller population realms of there just straight up not being certain variations of items on the auction house. The 262 Crafter's Mark gear, the latest version of the Crafter's Mark gear, is a really good example of this. They added the progenitor enhancements in patch 9.2. These progenitor enhancements allow you to not only take the base item, it allows you to bump it to the highest item level possible for a piece of crafted gear. Many people then at item level 262 consider this a piece of gear that's going to stick around on their character for maybe quite a while. And this has led people who want to buy these items to very specifically want to cherry pick the perfect crafted item. They want it to have the exact secondary stats that are optimal for them. They wanted to have it the optimal progenitor enhancement for them. And this has meant that both the cost and the quantity of variations of these items is massive. If you're not playing on one of the largest servers, there's a very strong possibility that that exact combination of stats and perks just isn't available to you. It may not even be listed on the auction house. So the work order system comes in and facilitates the ability for you to say, right, this is the item I want. This is the, stats that I want on it. This is the item level I want on it. And if you're able to fulfill that order for me, I will give you a small tip. Blizzard have done some mock-up examples of this. And as we can see, 200 gold, here's some of the materials. Arguably, in this. These feel very Photoshop. These don't feel as if these are like actually built up systems with Blizzard as of yet. Hopefully when we get an alpha or a beta or something, we can start to see how it works in game in a bit more detail. But that, I think, hopefully explains why work order systems have become a thing. It's been something that the player base generally has been sort of asking for a while. And work orders are coming in. But they're not the traditional buy and sell orders that a lot of people have been asking for. There seems to be a middle ground that Blizzard are at least dipping their toe into the water with some new system to facilitate this. Let's talk about quick pros and cons then. I know I'm already sort of however long, 10 minutes into the video already, and we've really not got to the meat of the discussion yet. But I just wanted to really make sure I set the foundations on what the work order system is appearing at least to be, and who it benefits, and what are the pros and cons of this. So to start off, it's going to make it much easier for somebody to buy that exact item that they want. We've said that, you know, Ask Gear gets more varied, and Ask Gear becomes closer to, you know, that best in slot list that people strive for. We're not talking about just, you know, trash little bits of gear that you pick to just, you know, make the leveling process smoother. Catch-up gear doesn't really matter as much. You just need catch-up gear, just is all item level, right? You just want to increase your item level quickly, so you just hit harder to get you to a point where you can actually start earning the best gear that you're trying to get. We're talking more so here about actually, you know, cherry-picking those best items for you. Work orders are also going to reduce the inventory that a crafter has to hold, or more importantly, the risk that that crafter has to take. If you are trying to supply or at least give everybody the option to pick whichever variation they need, you as a crafter might have to make 10, 15, 20 different variations of the exact same item. And you as a crafter have to be able to cover the cost of every single one of those up front. And you have no guarantee that you're going to be able to sell all of those items that you craft. And more importantly, you don't have any guarantee that you're going to be able to craft them for more than what it cost you to make them. So there's a huge risk involved from the crafter's perspective, the more that, you know, items become more varied. So the work orders help to alleviate this as well. It's also going to reduce the amount of time that needs to be spent actually selling something that's crafted. One of the biggest pain points for the professions, certainly in Shadowlands, is that getting the pattern is usually not too difficult. In most cases, you get them off a vendor, or you accidentally get them because you've grinded out enough reputation with somebody. Getting the pattern's pretty easy. Gathering the materials is as simple as either going out and farming for them yourself, or in many cases just buying them off the auction house. The auction house is always stocked to the hills with most materials. They may not necessarily always be at the price you want to pay, but they're always there. Pressing the craft button is very simple. So the process of making the item, generally pretty easy. The difficult part is actually selling that item though. The cancel scan meta is real. And this is one of the big pain points for many people that engage with the auction house on a regular basis, that if they are not doing their best efforts to keep their crafted item at the front of the queue via the commonly referred to cancel scanning meta, the process of every time somebody undercuts your item, you cancel yours off and you relist it on the auction house. That keeps your item at the very front of the queue, meaning hopefully that the second somebody comes into the auction house to buy that item, that yours is at the front of the queue and yours is the one that ultimately sells to them. This process, when you multiply that across many different items that you're crafting and trying to sell, means that some people feel the necessity to sit at the auction house for incredibly large periods of time, just managing the auctions. It may not necessarily even be selling anything at this point, just trying to keep, it's like playing spinning plates. You're trying to keep all of your items at the front of the queue so that anybody that comes in to buy something, you're increasing your chance that they buy your crafted item rather than the next person's. If you can go to an interface and you see there's an order for an item, that's somebody that's waiting. That's a customer that's waiting in a queue. And it means that you can say, right, I'm going to fulfill that order. Bang, make the item, sell it instantly. The time spent actually selling is reduced to almost nothing. Massive bonus, I feel. Really, really good for the gameplay experience regarding crafting. It is, though, you could see this as both a positive and a negative, depending on which side of the fence you sit. It's going to make crafted items overall far less expensive to buy. This is mainly because it changes the power dynamic, and we're going to talk about the power dynamic a little bit in a second, but crafted items are overall going to be less expensive. The reason why things like base legendary items currently are or tend to be super expensive is for the fact that they A, cost a lot to craft, B, they cost a lot to even be able to craft, and C, the people who are selling them have full control over how much they have them listed for. The only people they're competing against is other sellers, and this tends to mean that in many situations there's a big delta between what people see an item costs to craft and then what it's actually listed for on the auction house. And more annoyingly to many people, they look at similar items. Let's say you look at a chest plate and you look at a pair of legs, seemingly similar stats, similar item level, but one could end up being considerably more expensive than the other for no real obvious reason. And it causes friction and it causes frustration. And this is all the sort of things that Blizzard wants to try and alleviate from this system as a whole. We spoke about the power dynamic, though. This is the meat and veg of the video. This is where I really start to actually justify why I think that work orders are bad for gold making. We are successfully 16 minutes into the video. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much. Make sure you drop a comment down below with, I don't know, we'll pick a random word. I don't know. We'll use the word sheep. If you've made it to this part in the video, drop the word sheep in the comments down below. If you see somebody's already commented, make sure you give that comment a like. You're part of the good crew. Thank you very much. I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate you sticking around. I hope you're learning something. But now, anyway, let's get into it. The power shift. What do I mean by the power shift? Well, the work order system is going to shift who has the power, who controls the price of the items. The shift is going to be from where it's always been previously in the hands of the seller, the person who is actually trying to sell the item. They're the one that gets to dictate how much they sell their item for. Now, obviously, they have competition. They have to make sure that they're competing against other sellers, but they're never being dictated to by the buyer. The buyer strolls into the auction house in most cases and has one of two choices. If they find a spurred war boots of the dragon that they want to buy, they can either choose to buy it or to not buy it. It's one of two. That power dynamic is shifting, though, and this is going to be the big reason to why work orders will not be good for goal making. When you shift the power almost completely to the buyer, you can strip all profit from those crafts almost immediately. This will ultimately mean that most crafted items that sell through this work order system will basically go for zero profit. The commission system or a tip-based system is a nice thing to have, but let's not forget, this is a video game. People are going to pay the absolute bare minimum they can physically get away with. In the real world, especially in places like America, for example, the tipping culture is quite strong. I mean, it almost goes as far as it's frowned upon to not tip when you receive some sort of service. But, like I said, this is a video game, and in a video game, people don't care. It's people's prerogative to pay the least amount they possibly can for any given item. If I feel that if there is at least one gold profit to be made from a work order, there will be somebody out there that will fulfill that order. The only way that this could switch in the opposite direction is if there is a much greater demand for an item than there is supply of it. Now, unfortunately, that is a hypothetical situation that does not exist in World of Warcraft, has never existed in World of Warcraft, and is an example, is a hypothetical situation that is incredibly hard to actually create in a video game. Mainly because it's bad game design for it to work that way. They want to make people be specialized in certain areas, but they don't want people to be so specialized that there is literally only one person on your server that can craft any given item. Let's look at the auction house just very quickly. The auction house is there for a really good reason. There has always been, and there probably always will be, more people trying to sell an item than there are people that actually want to buy that item. This is why you can search for nearly any item in the game and you will see not just one person selling it, but a list of people selling it. There may be 10, 15, 20 different people trying to sell the exact same item, and this is hence why the cancel scan meta has been so strong. There is considerably more people trying to sell any item in the game than there are people wanting to buy it. Now, if you remove a whole bunch of those people that are trying to buy it and, give them the ability to say, right, I do want this, but I want it at this price, you can see how the power shift has moved, and you can see how very, very quickly it becomes an instant race to the bottom. It instantly zergs down that obviously the highest commissions will go first, but there's also a misconception that you're going to log on and see a massive list of work orders. I don't actually believe there will be a huge list of work orders, because guess what? There's hundreds, if not thousands of people that all play on your same server, all of which will have access to a bunch of these professions. Now, they might not have access to all of them, but there's a very good chance that if you don't, somebody else does. These work orders are going to get fulfilled incredibly quickly. And if there's even one gold profit, somebody will be there to fulfill that order for you. It's going to have to require Blizzard to do extensive amounts of balancing to make it so that this work order system could be profitable for crafters, but I can't see it happening. We'll see. Time will tell, but in my opinion, at least, I don't see it happening. For those that want to continue to make large amounts of gold in World of Warcraft, though, the auction house is still going to be your friend. I only feel that maybe 5 to 10% of the total sales will go through this work order system. Look at how the auction house runs today. There are only a very small percentage of people that really care to buy the exact item that they're looking for. Most people go to the auction house, see the item that they want, and they buy the cheapest one. That's pretty much it. And more importantly, it's instant gratification with the auction house. This is maybe one of the negatives I should have added to the list of the work orders that we haven't really touched on in much detail, but it's a time delay. The reason the auction house is so popular is that somebody can go to the auction house with the gold in their bags, search for the item they want, and they can buy it. There's no, instant gratification. They go loot the item from the mailbox, everything's done. If one thing I've learned through playing World of Warcraft for so many years is that people are incredibly impatient. This is kind of cute and fluffy. The note to crafter, I would like to have this for tomorrow's raid if you can get it done in time. They're willing to give a 200 gold commission, but they're going to have to wait for this order to be fulfilled. Players don't like waiting for things. The fact that you might have to wait to have this order filled is a massive negative to the person buying it. What's to say this exact combination is available on the auction house, and instead of paying 200 gold, they have to pay 250 gold? Well, guess what? They're probably going to pay 250 gold and buy it instantly off the auction house. People are lazy. People want instant gratification. So the big money, the big gold is still going to be made on the auction house. The work order system, it's good from a gameplay aspect. It's going to mean that there's, a slightly fairer I would go as far as to say that it's going to spread out the opportunities for crafters out there. It will definitely incentivize more people to engage with the crafting professions. If they're going to put time and effort to update and revitalize the crafting UI and add some fancy new resourcefulness and inspirations and qualities, and if they're going to spend time overhauling it, they want as many people as possible to interact with it, and making it a smooth and easy process for you to sell the items that you craft will facilitate that, but at the cost of it not really making people any gold. If you are looking to make gold, your focus will still very heavily be on the auction house. But I will leave it there then, boys and girls. I hope that's done a little bit to help you, hopefully, at least understand how the new work order system may play out in reality. It's going to obviously take a lot of testing and a lot of, feedback from the community once we get an alpha or a beta for people to start seeing this live and seeing how it works. There's still lots of questions to be said, but I will be sure to go over those as and when we get the information. So, on that note, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.